Good morning, everybody. It's Mr. Snark here. I hope you're all safe and well and managing to keep yourselves busy during these very strange times. Don't forget, learning is a great way to keep you occupied. If you've been listening to any of the news of late, then you've no doubt heard the phrase, "We are following the science." This means that the scientists have been guiding the government throughout the pandemic in order to keep as many of us as safe as possible. Without the scientists, the situation could have been a whole lot worse, and it once again highlights how important science is for all of us in our daily lives. You could say that all of our doctors, nurses and healthcare workers are also scientists, as they have to know all about the science of the human body and how it works in order to help us get better if we are poorly. As you may have heard me say before, there's no escaping science. It literally means the study of the universe and everything within it and how it all works. It's unavoidable, as we're all a part of this vast system. Thankfully, most children in our school and the nation over really enjoy learning about science, and this stands us in good stead for developing the scientists of tomorrow. Some of those will undoubtedly be some of you. At this very moment in time, there are British scientists busily carrying out science experiments, following the same scientific method that we learn in school, to test different medicines in order to find a vaccine to the coronavirus that will help us all be safer in the future. So, what is that process? It's been a while since we've been in school, so let me remind you. As you may remember, we use what we call the scientific method. This helps us to carefully test our ideas and find out more about the world we live in. Scientific investigation always begins with a question, something that we want to find out. So, let's take a really simple one. What type of throw is the best for throwing a ball the furthest? Underarm or overarm? Obviously, in this instance, we can test it simply by throwing a ball overarm and throwing a ball underarm and seeing which one goes the furthest. In science, before testing, we tend to make what's called a prediction, or some of you may have heard that this is also called a hypothesis. In this case, my hypothesis might be, I think that I will throw the ball furthest when I use overarm. I think this because when I've seen people throwing something as far as they can in sports or on television, they use overarm. I think this helps the body to generate the most power. After making our prediction or hypothesis, then we carry out the test. This is also called an experiment or an investigation. So, when we get testing, we need to think about making sure that everything is done carefully and fairly. But how could we make this particular test fair? We may want to think about throwing the ball multiple times and measuring how far the ball goes each time. This way, we can work out the average of how far we might have thrown the ball, so that if we just threw it once and it was just a bad throw, that wouldn't spoil our results. Secondly, we could make sure that we throw the same size object. It wouldn't be fair to throw a tennis ball using overarm and then when we switch to underarm to start throwing a ping pong ball, because those items would behave in a different way, so that wouldn't be fair. So we need to make sure that we're throwing the same object all of the time. We also need to make sure that we're throwing from the same position and in the same place. It would be no good doing some of the throwing indoors and then going outdoors, because those conditions could change the results. For example, it could be windy, which might affect how far the ball was to travel. And lastly, we'd need to be consistent in how we're throwing the ball. This just makes sure that we're comparing the two methods fairly. Once an investigation is complete, we then analyse our results and compare them with our prediction to form a conclusion. This means simply looking at the results and seeing what happened. So in our case, we would check the results for how far the ball travelled when we threw it overarm, and compare that with how far the ball travelled when we threw it underarm. And obviously, whichever went the greatest distance tells us that that throw throws the ball the furthest. Simple. Finally, after an investigation, we always carry out an evaluation. Again, this is exactly how real scientists work. We would look at how the investigation was carried out, if we think it was carried out as fairly as it could have been, and so if we think that our results were reliable. That means, can we trust that the results have told us what actually happened? And then we might think about how we could do anything differently. We may want to look at redoing the test so that we make it more fair, or possibly even changing the test and bringing in something else, like a different type of throw to compare with the first two. As you know, we like to carry out fun and exciting experiments here at Trumaker. As most of us are not currently in school, it is a little trickier to carry out science experiments, although not impossible. There are some fantastic ideas for science experiments for children online. Last year, we had a competition where children carried out their own experiments at home and made a science selfie, showing what they did and what scientific process they were learning about. This week, it'd be great to see some more science experimentation going on at home. Here's some pictures from children carrying out science experiments from last year. If you are going to have a go, please make sure you've got an adult supervising you at all times, as science can sometimes produce spectacular results. Post your science selfies onto the school's Twitter page, or email them to Mr. Slater using the usual address. I hope to see you all very soon, but in the meantime, see what fun you can get out of scientific experimentation. And then, hopefully one day, who knows, you might be one of the nation's incredible scientists, working to make our world a better place to live in. Bye for now.